Hi, this is Darren from SimNation. Just doing a quick recap video on WWPF, our Draft Day Sports Pro Football 2024 League here at SimNation. Excuse me. So we're getting near the playoffs, and a lot of this video is going to focus more on what is the playoff scenario. So I'll just drive straight in. A couple people have asked, we will move to 2025 as soon as the season ends, probably about 2 weeks from now. If you're interested, definitely let us know. We have some really good teams open, and I'll cover those at the end of the video. Not much is said in the NFC. I think really the only thing set in stone right now is that Carolina is going to be likely the number 2 seed. And of course, that's Invisible Witness's team. Outside of that, everything else is still kind of up in the air in the NFC. For the North, Minnesota one of two needs to win one of their two next games, and they play Chicago and Detroit in order to have a good chance of getting in. The best opportunity, though, for them to do is to win out. If they win out, then there's no scenario that Green Bay can sneak in. But if Green Bay wins both of their next two games and Minnesota loses one of the games, Green Bay can actually sneak in because they will have the same division record as long as Green Bay beats Detroit. Sorry. If Green Bay beats Detroit and they're both at 9-7, Green Bay would get the nod over Minnesota because they would have the same division record. It'll flip to conference. And as a result of that, Green Bay would be the one that would sneak in. So for Minnesota, you just got to win both of your games, or hope Green Bay loses one of their next two games for you to be able to get in. Carolina, there's no scenario where Atlanta is going to be able to get past Carolina, even though they play one more time, just because all the tie breaks would favor Carolina. Atlanta can still make the playoffs, although it's kind of murky right now. In order for Atlanta to make the playoffs, they essentially need for Seattle to lose both of our next two games, and Atlanta would need to win at least one of their next two games. And again, they play Carolina in the season-ending game. New Orleans, Tampa Bay not making it in. For the New York Giants, they just need to win one more game, and then they would be 8-8, and there's no scenario where Dallas could catch them. But if they lose their next two games and Dallas wins their next two games, Dallas would actually win the division and be the playoff team. For the West, San Francisco, LA play this week, so really essentially if San Francisco loses their next two games and LA wins this game, then LA would be the West Division winner. But if San Francisco wins one of the next two games, then they're in because they have the better record. So in reality, what probably is going to play out is San Francisco likely won't lose both of their next two games. I think they play Dallas in the final. LA versus San Francisco is going to be a toss-up. LA right now has the tiebreak because they won earlier in the season. So I think San Francisco will be the 1 seed, Carolina will be the 2 seed. I think that Minnesota likely will be the 3 seed, depending on what happens with Green Bay. But if Green Bay does do what they need to do, which that's DWK, so there's a good chance of that, then Green Bay would still be the 3 seed. New York would likely be the 4 seed. And of course, if Dallas makes it in because New York folds, Dallas would be the 4 seed. And then for the 5th seed, it's either going to be LA or San Francisco, whoever doesn't win that division. In this case, it's LA. And then while I'm hoping for a really good pull through for Atlanta, I don't see it happening. I think Seattle gets the 6th seed. So as you can see, still as clear as mud in the NFC. On the AFC, it's a little bit more well defined. If Pittsburgh wins one of their next two games, one is against Baltimore, the other one, if I remember correctly, is going to be against New Orleans, I think. They should beat New Orleans. If they win one of their next two games, they are the number 1 seed. In order for Baltimore to get ahead of them, well, there's not really a scenario where Baltimore would get ahead of them. There would be a tie break. Even if Pittsburgh were to lose their next two games, the tiebreak would favor the Steelers over Baltimore. Baltimore is in the playoffs, already. Of course, they just need to win one more game, and then they can lock up that 5 seed. Tennessee is in. There's not a scenario where they won't be. Right now, they are playing as the number 3 seed, but they do need to win at least one more of their games in order to be in a position where the tiebreaks will favor them against New England. So Tennessee, of course, is Bama, who's had an excellent season. No one else from the South is going to make it into the playoffs. In the East, no one but New England's going to make it into the playoffs. New England really needs to win their next 2 games and hope for a loss, 2 losses by Tennessee in order for New England to claim the 3 seed. Right now, they're playing as the 4 seed. Oakland, of course, is hoping that Pittsburgh loses their next 2 games. If Pittsburgh wins any one of those next 2 games, Oakland is the 2 seed. If Pittsburgh loses them both, then Oakland would be the 1 seed, Pittsburgh will be the 2 seed. Um, as for that last playoff spot, because Baltimore's already kind of claimed it, Kansas City versus Denver. If Kansas City wins one of their next 2 games, because they do play Denver, if I'm not mistaken, um, if they beat Denver, especially if they beat Denver, they are in as they are in the playoffs as a wild card. Denver needs for Kansas City to lose both of their next 2 games. And again, Denver plays San Diego and Kansas City, whereas Kansas City plays Oakland and Denver. So Denver's best hope is Kansas City's got to lose their next 2 games. Kansas City just needs to win one of their next 2 games in order to do that. So they either need to beat Oakland again or they have to beat Denver. And that's the way it will play out. So if we just played this out the way that's probably going to work is Pittsburgh will be the 1 seed, Oakland will be the 2 seed, Tennessee will be the 3 seed, New England will be the 4, and then you'll have likely Baltimore be the 5th seed, and then it's either going to be Kansas City or Denver as the 6th seed, likely Kansas City. So it should make for an interesting playoffs. What that will likely mean is that Tennessee would get either Kansas City or Denver. New England would get Baltimore. In the other one, it would be likely Minnesota will get Seattle, and then the New York Giants would get the LA Rams. So that should make for an interesting wild card round. So that's kind of what the playoffs look like. As you can see, it's still pretty muddled. It'll clear up a little bit tonight based on some of the matchups going on. Outside of that, just a quick look across the league. We still have Denham is leading the league in passing. Passing touchdowns, of course, is Adam Johnson, who's the quarterback at Oakland. Passing rating is not Ray Stevens, but Norris Goldman, who is Barry's star quarterback at LA, who's had a really good season again. Rushing, Nathan Ford's probably going to win this, which is Stewart's star running back out at San Francisco. Lackey will give him a run for it. Boudreaux, of course, is DWK's star running back, and then you still have Scott Grant, who is BioEgo's star running back. Rushing touchdowns, again, it's a battle between Ford and Lackey, but Ford's got a pretty good lead. Adrian Torres, he just needs about 100 yards and he'll set the single season record for receiving. So hopefully he gets it. He's really, really close to it. Bittner's had a really good year after moving over from San Diego to Oakland. Wyatt Thurman for Feld has had a really good season. He's definitely benefited from the person who, by our accounts, should be the Rookie of the Year on Pharaoh Compton, who's the former quarterback out of Georgia who's drafted at number 1 this season. Or was the top quarterback picked. I don't know if you remember if he was number 1. Paul Chu is definitely having a great season, so is Adam Fan. If we go back, Peter's doing a pretty good job of throwing the ball around, and between Bittner and Chu and Pham, they're all having really good seasons. Cunningham has just been off the charts all season for New England at linebacker with tackles. He's having a really good season, as is Lab, who is at LA. And then, of course, you see 2 of Udo's linebackers uphill with Whalen and Bone. Sacked wise, no challenge here. Sousa's running away with it. Sousa is probably the best defensive end in the league. plays for Pete Orso ever since that trade with Baltimore. And interception-wise, you see two Vikings uphill between Devin Scott and Kevin Anderson, 12 interceptions between them. They're both having really good seasons as well. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. Thank you for your time tonight. This was just going to be a quick video no matter what. But just some thoughts to end on. If you're interested in the league, Detroit's open, Chicago's open, New Orleans, Tampa Bay, Philadelphia, the Giants are open. The Bengals and the Ravens, the Colts, the Texans and Jaguars, the Bills and the I'm sorry, the Bills are open, the Dolphins are not. Those are the open teams, and if you look at this, you can see that probably the good teams to take would be Seattle and Baltimore if you're interested in this league. Um, but some of the other teams, like Atlanta, will be freeing up here shortly. If you wanted to take Atlanta, that's a really good team. Had a really good coach who built them up. The Bills have some really good building blocks, so do the Bengals. If you want to flip the model and go after someone who has a top pick in the draft, definitely you'd want to look at Tampa Bay, New Orleans, probably Cincinnati, and then that's really going to be it. Jacksonville would be another. But thank you for your time. We'll see how this all plays out and have a great evening. Thanks.